Okay, so can we start? Boleh?
Boleh, Doktor.
Okay. I think Vijaya will join in later. Alright, so before we start going through the chapters that I have assigned for this week, again, I would remind you to go to the Google Classroom. You can look into the scheme of work. So in the scheme of work is basically the summary of this subject and also the assignment weightage. Okay, for blended learning mode, you have assignment 1, 2, mini project, and also a final semester exam. And that is for the theory part. Then for practical, you will have practical assessment, which is basically your lab report, and also a practical test. Okay. And then for Tarisini, you will have micro-credential mode. So we will have assignment 1, assignment 2. Your practical code is combined together. So you will have practical assessment, which is your reports, and the major project. Okay. So this is basically the weightage. I will brief you on all of these assignment instruction. Again, just to remind you, because you are doing a short semester, so it will be a bit cramped in terms of the deadlines. Okay, but we will try to work with it. Okay, so this is the breakdown of the chapters that we will have. Okay, so for last week we have gone through like an introduction. Okay, and then this week we will need to cover chapter 2 until chapter 4. And also I will go through with you the assessment briefing. Then we will have Raya break for 2 weekends. And then we will proceed with the next session, but it will be asynchronous, meaning that we don't have to meet each other like this. You will need to go through this chapter on your own. Okay, carbohydrates, the metabolism, and also amino acid and protein. I will upload the same thing. I will upload in terms of the materials, maybe some standard notes, supplementary videos, and so on for you to refer. And you will need to submit your assignment 1 during this week. Okay. And then the next week, we will have a synchronous session, but we will focus on practical session. So we will do about 5 labs, 5 experiments on that day. Okay. But for that week, you will need to cover these chapters: protein metabolism, lipid, and lipid metabolism on your own self-learning. And you will need to submit your assignment 2. Okay, and then the next week, following week would be asynchronous, meaning that again, we don't have to see each other, but you need to do your self-learning covering these chapters. Okay, and then another asynchronous session. Then you will need to submit your mini project, and then we will have final examination. But don't worry on this, I will keep on giving you practice questions so that you will be familiar with the question setup. Okay, and then that's the end of your semester. All right, so you can go through this later for you to refer what you need to study for that week. So for this week, I have put in the materials. So the cellular biochemistry. Okay, you have a lecture slides. Okay, lecture slides is not comprehensive, but it will give you an overview what you need to cover for the chapter. Okay, and then an extended note. Okay, I put in a link that I think would be helpful. So cellular biochemistry is just very basic recap of what we have in our cells. Okay, and then you can try on the exercise that I have given. Okay, this is not assessed, but take it as the way you would discipline yourself to study on these chapters. Okay, and then we have water and pH. So this is the lecture slides. For this one, I've attached a video. Okay, then you have the same thing, an exercise for you to try on. And we will cover on enzyme as well. So the first 3 chapters is basically kind of a recap for you. Usually in exam, we won't be covering these 2 chapters in, these 3 chapters will only be tested in your MCQ, if I'm not mistaken, okay? maybe one question on S. Oh, no, tak ada, tak ada. So this 3 is usually tested on objective punya question only. Okay. So nanti I will upload the remaining materials for each of the weeks. Okay. Alright. So before we start to go through a bit of a summary for the chapters, do you have any questions? Maybe based on what you have read through that you want me to clarify, I will note down and then we'll go through it together as I summarize the chapters.
I have some question. Yesterday you got sent the exercise for the 3 chapters that we never studied.
Mm-hmm.
I have do, but some questions are wrong. So I'm stop doing because I'm scared if I like it's writing like 100 points, right? So I lost the
Mm-hmm.
points. No, I never do lah, but I just go through what I need to do and everything.
Okay.
Is it it's take a marks for us?
No. It's just for your practice. It won't be taken formally lah. It won't be recorded.
So we need to submit or anything?
Yeah. Just take it like a commitment to do every week so that you would be
Okay.
lost towards the end of the semester only then you will study. So take it like a weekly breakdowns for you to study.
Okay, miss.
All right.
Thank you, miss.
Okay. So for the first chapter, cellular biomolecules, although the name is a bit fancy, it's just basically us trying to understand our cells. Okay. Why? First thing, because when we talk about biochemistry, it's all about the reactions, the mechanism that is happening inside our body. So where does these all reactions are taking place? It's inside our cells. Okay, so that is why we need to learn on the structure of our cells. What are the components that are present inside of our cells, and how does these components function in biochemistry? Okay, so that is basically the importance of this chapter. Okay, you need to look into cell theory, basically to understand what is cell. Okay, what does cells do? Okay, and then the differences between eukaryotes and prokaryotes, and then structure and functions. And you need to differentiate very briefly between animal cells and plant cells. And then we step up a bit, we look into the fluid mosaic model. Okay, how does this model is actually explaining the structure of our cell membrane. Okay, and how transport occurs going into the cells and outside of the cells. Okay, so this is the main idea or the main thing that you need to know for this chapter. Okay. So this is just an overview for you. Okay, so cells are the basic unit. Okay, so when we talk about cell theory, okay, it is important for us to understand that cell is taken as the cornerstone of a biology. So cornerstone means that everything that happens, biology starts with the understanding of what happens inside the cell. Okay. Okay, so you need to understand this. Okay, prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. So briefly, prokaryotic is bacterial cells. Mostly bacterial cells are under prokaryotic cells. They are more basic and less organized. Okay, our cells, human cell, animal cells, plant cells falls under the category of eukaryotic cells. Okay, the things inside our cells are more organized. We have membrane that is surrounding each of the components. Okay, so you can go through this later. Okay, what are the differences, right? Okay, so if you see, this is actually the cross section of our cells. Okay, these tiny things inside our cells that are floating, we call them as organelles, organ of the cells. Okay, what are the things inside of the cell? So when I say organelles, you should be imagining these things, the nucleus, mitochondria, and so on. Okay, so this is the similarities and differences between animal cells and plant cells. Okay, in general, the biggest difference would be in terms of the shape. Okay, animal cells are more fluid. Okay, like our cells, we can pinch our body. Okay, and so on. But for plant cells, they are more rigid. Okay, because of the cell wall. Okay, and then one of the important thing in plant cell would be the presence of this green thing. We call them as chloroplast. So it's important for them to do photosynthesis. Okay. Okay. So for this chapter, the components of this chapter where we will go through this structure and also function, this is your assignment 1. So I will brief on this later. So I will be going through this in detail because this is basically a recap from our previous knowledge. So this would be for you, assigned for you in your assignment 1, where you need to identify and present it in a booklet. Okay, what are the organelles and their function? Okay, for example, we have the nucleus. What is the function of nucleus? And then we have endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes. What are their functions? Okay, so I will brief you on this later in terms of the organelle, structure and function. Okay, so it's okay for this one. All right, so the next thing inside this chapter is basically for us to understand the plasma membrane and the transportation. So the main thing that you need to first grab is that our cell membrane is selectively permeable, meaning that it allows certain things to go in freely, but it's more strict towards another thing. So it's like our cells have gates, okay, allowing certain things to go in and go out, but inhibiting certain things, or certain things may require a transport, okay, a special carrier, okay. So this is very important so that we won't be absorbing anything. So it's like a security for our body, okay, by having a cell membrane that is selectively permeable. So permeable means boleh boleh lalu. Okay, selective means it's not open to all. Okay, not open access. Okay, so this is a very famous theory to describe our cell membrane. We call them as fluid mosaic model. Fluid because it's not rigid. Okay, mosaic because of the presence of the component within the plasma membrane. Okay, okay. So this is what I meant as fluid. It's not rigid. It can flow, move very easily. Mosaic because of the presence of the arrangement of these components. Okay, so in your assignment 1, you need to include in terms of this as well. What are the components on our plasma membrane? Okay, we have integral protein, okay, cholesterol. So this is basically just for you to recap and refresh your memory on all of these, okay, the structure of our cells. And then we have, after understanding the structure of the gate, we need to know how the gate works. Okay, so that comes in the transport, type of transport. Okay, we have simple diffusion. Okay, so this is just an illustration for you to understand what happens in simple diffusion. And then we have facilitated diffusion. Okay, and then osmosis, which is specific for water. And then active transport. Okay, so that is all for chapter 2, which the content is actually covered in your assignment 1. So if you manage to complete your assignment 1, then you have complete your understanding on this chapter. Okay, I will show you some examples for assignment 1 later. Any question for this chapter? Cellular biomolecules.
Miss,
Yeah.
actually yang Miss kata yang assignment tu, so need to kena lukis lah.
Tak payah lukis tak apa, boleh ambil image daripada mana-mana lah. Sebab boleh guna textbook ke, nak guna Google Image ke, boleh je.
Oh, okay. Baik, Miss. Baik.
kalau untuk student yang full time, saya suruh lukis lah. Tapi because you guys are working kan, so tak apa, kita make it easy for you. As long as you are able to identify the structure and function. Okay. I think this chapter is a bit straightforward kan. Macam you just need to read and then understand the structure and function. Okay. Okay, tak apalah. Saya explain dulu on your assignment 1 since it's related to the chapter just now. Okay, nanti saya upload this instruction. So your assignment 1, the topic is topik yang tadi itulah cellular biochemistry or cellular biomolecules. Okay, the main idea of assignment 1 is for you to do an infographic booklet. Okay, infographic booklet maksudnya less words, more images. Okay, so first thing, the instruction, your booklet must contain a maximum of 10 pages. Saya tukarlah 15. Okay. So the mode is individual unless you would like to do in group. Okay. I'm okay with that. I'm flexible with that. If you are more comfortable doing it in group, just let me know. Okay. But by default, it's in an individual work. Okay. You need to submit in the form of soft copy only. In the Google Classroom, I will create a submission slot and also e-class if you have access to. Okay, but it's okay. Tak apa, yang tu nanti dulu. Okay, so date of submission is during the weekend of 14 May. Okay, and so this is the content of your booklet. Okay, so you will need to put a very brief introduction. So this introduction you can talk about cell theory, for example, up to you. Okay, very brief. Satu pergan about 1 to 2 sentences should be enough. Okay, and then a very brief table of content. Okay, so what the content of this assignment is basically you need to include the structure and function of each of the organelles, both animal and also plant. Okay, and then talk about the fluid mosaic model. Okay, you need to include the images of the cell membrane which with the components, label them. And then what are the types of transport across cell? The simple diffusion, you need to briefly explain on them. And then very briefly, what are your main references? Just put 1 or 2 references should be enough. Okay, I will show you one example. Sekejap,
Miss,
Yeah.
we need to draw by pencil and need upload, or we need to create or draw in the paint or anything.
Up to you. Whatever that is possible, you don't need to draw. You can take the images from Google ke, from textbook ke. I'm okay with that.
Oh,
If you're comfortable
okay.
with drawing, then you can draw. Okay.
Okay.
So this is one example. Okay. So for this cohort, I asked them to draw because they are full-time students. Okay, but up to you. So this is something that you may expect to do. Okay, you can write in like organelles of a cell. Okay, and then put the images and then label them clearly. Okay, and then include the structure and also the function. So for example, over here, they are trying to show nucleus. So this is the nucleus. So they include the structure. Okay, very briefly, it doesn't have to be full sentences. Okay, as long as it's understandable. Okay, tak perlu macam ayat panjang-panjang. The less word is better. Okay, and then the description of the function. For example, over here, tulis function as the control center of cellular activities. Then storehouse of the cell's DNA. Okay, and then the next one, mitochondria. You can include the image and then label them, and then just very briefly what's the structure. Okay, kalau kat sini the structure is the mitochondria have double membrane bound. So dia ada dua membrane, satu layer kat luar, one layer inside. Okay, and then itulah. Dia macam folded structure macam ni. Okay, and then what are the function? So generate most of chemical energy. So sebenarnya tak payah panjang-panjang macam ni lah ayat. You can put it very briefly. Generate chemical energy in the form of ATP, for example. Okay, and then so on. So continue for the remaining organelles yang ada. So organelle mana yang you nak include, everything is based in the lecture slides. So organelles yang ada dalam tu, so you need to include in your assignment. So that is on organelle. Image, label, and then a bit description of the structure and function. Okay. So yang tu organelles. So this one is the fluid mosaic model. So in this case, the students draw lah. So you can imagine it like this. Okay, the structure of the fluid mosaic model, and then label them. What are the structure, and include what are the function. For example, peripheral protein. If the function is about the same, for example, integral protein and also peripheral protein is about the same, dia punya function, you can combine the description together. Tak payah tulis dua kali. So the aim is less words. Okay. And then for this one, group ni dia combine je in one page the type of transport. Okay, so we have passive transport, and then dia divide it into two, and then active transport. Sorry, three. Diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and osmosis. And then active transport. Okay. As long as for type of transport ni you understand what type of component or molecule yang boleh lalu, what type of molecule, is it against concentration gradient ke, follow the concentration gradient, okay, and then whether or not it requires ATP. Nanti I will add in what are the things that I want you to put in for this yang type of transport ni. So you don't have to put everything lah. And then just a simple illustration to show how does these molecules move. Okay, and then references. Itu saja untuk assignment 1. Okay, any question?
Miss, we need to, how many structures have we include all the structures and the function of that structures lah.
Yang dalam lecture slides tadi.
So kita lukis dalam tangan, lepas tu kita scan, kita upload, lepas tu kita edit dalam komputer ya, macam tu.
Boleh
so,
juga.
Saya ingat dia orang
up to you. You can do that, lukis lepas tu label, or you can just take the pictures daripada Google Image. Contoh kan? Sekejap.
Okay, understand Miss.
Okay. So you contohnya you just Google image nucleus image macam tu. So you can take the image and then you label. So organelle apa to include, you can refer to this. Apa yang ada dalam in my slides, all the organelles here from slide number 11 ni sampailah slide number 21 ni is all the organelle that you need to include in your assignment 1. Okay?
Okay, Miss.
Okay. So biasanya in your exam, questions will ask you structure and function. Maybe dia bagi a list of structure, dia suruh dia tanya, okay, ni organelle yang mana? Or dia akan tanya apa function of this organelle punya structure ni? Ataupun dia bagi you function and then dia suruh describe what is the structure of this organelle. So very straightforward question on this. Okay. So that is for chapter cellular biomolecules and your assignment 1. Okay, let's move into the second chapter, water and pH. Sekejap boleh kita take 5 minutes break? I will end the session yang ni, link ni, because I want to ni, sebab dia punya link ni 40 minutes je. So nanti
Okay,
kita
Miss
masuk balik.
Boleh, Miss.
Alright.